We welcome you to the deep blue waters of peace with the hope for tomorrow and the responsibility to preserve the oceans of today. Gather here together as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope as a sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the lives we share together. Before we sing the first hymn, please let me remind you to leave yourselves muted. However, we want you and whoever's with you to sing along with Jan or Mary as big and loud as you like. Make it a joyous experience. So let's sing the opening hymn, Blue Boat Home. Thank you, Jan. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist community of Cambria. We are glad you have joined us today. As a Unitarian Universalist community, we celebrate religious diversity and welcome all who journey in search of faith and spirituality. The UUCC is a lay-led congregation inviting speakers from different religious traditions and spiritual or scientific backgrounds to speak on our pulpit. We encourage presentations covering a variety of topics and areas of interest to our community that connect with UU7 principles. Today's service centers around the seventh principle. We affirm and promote respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are all a part. Our seventh principle may be our Unitarian Universalist way of coming to fully embrace something greater than ourselves. The interdependent web, expressed as the spirit of life, the ground of all being, the oneness of existence, the community forming power, the process of life, the creative force, even God, can help us develop that social understanding of ourselves that we and our culture so desperately need. It is a source of meaning to which we can dedicate our lives. My name is Mary Ann Anderson, and I am your worship associate this morning. I would like to extend a special welcome to today's guests and visitors. We're so glad you joined us this morning under these challenging circumstances. And if you are not on our mailing list, please visit our website at www.uuccambria.org, uuccambria.org, so that we may keep you informed about all of our activities. And a reminder, if you wish to see this or any past Zoom services again, recordings of these services can be found on the UUCC website and on our Facebook page as well. The membership committee invites non-members to consider becoming a member of our community. Please contact Janet Cooper or a board member if you are interested. Thank you. Finally, you are all welcome to stay after the service this morning for a question and comment session with Jim. So again, good morning and welcome to everyone. Now, let us recite the affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant. To dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help one another. We set aside this time for any short announcements that would be of interest to our community and friends. Please keep your items short and to the point. For any items that need further explanation, please call or email the person after the service to be respectful of everyone's time. If you have an announcement, please raise your hand by clicking on the raise hand button near the lower right of your participant's window. When I call your name, click the unmute me button near the lower left of the participant's window, then speak. Randy and Mary.
Well, I wanted to thank everyone who had joined us yesterday for our exciting Zoom auction, and a special thank you for all your generosity, and also the two people who probably worked incredibly hard on this, which was Dolores Miera and Randy Schwalbe, for their generous time that they put into to this wonderful experience, which we had on Zoom yesterday, which was a lot of fun. If you'd like to join us again the next time we do it. So if all goes well, and when all the money comes in, we have a total of $3,275. Yay! So thank you all.
Thank you so much, Diane, for your efforts too. Jan, please unmute yourself and speak.
Yeah, I think most of that was meatballs. Anyway, I have a friend of mine, of ours, has joined a movement called Adopt a State, and she's adopted the state of Michigan. And they're asking people to volunteer to write out postcards urging people to vote. And I am not sure actually if it's urging people to vote one way or another, but it is definitely urging people to vote. And I have volunteered to write out 20 postcards. But I told her I would ask around and see if there were any other people who might be interested in this program, and we will be getting more postcards to make available for people. So let me know. I will be in touch with her. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you for your efforts. Lou, please unmute yourself and speak.
Just a reminder to the men's group that we don't meet tomorrow because June has 5 Mondays. So we will be meeting the following Monday.
Thank you very much, Lou. I believe that's all for now. Next week, Michael Esselin presents What Matters. Sharing together some of our personal and significant joys and concerns brings us closer as a faith-based community. We invite you to share the milestones that are deeply felt as a part of your personal life, but please be mindful and considerate of all who come to worship with us this morning. This is a time of community building. The first reading is a reflection on existence. We have come very close to wiping out many local species, some of which are making a comeback with our help. Pismo clam, red abalone, black abalone, elephant seal, sea otter, California condor, boccaccio rockfish, cowcod rockfish, yellow eye rockfish, steelhead, gray whale, bald eagle, and swordfish. There are many more. Let us now enter a place of peace and serenity where you are one with your spiritual being. Be at peace within your space where the absence of all that is temporal is its most cherished gift. Let us enter the stillness. Please come back now. The second reading is a list of the foundational goals established for marine protection areas in California. We're going to look at how this act was implemented here on the Central Coast. 1, protect the natural diversity and abundance of marine life and the structure, function, and integrity of marine ecosystems. 2, help sustain, conserve, and protect marine life populations, including those of economic value, and rebuild those that are depleted. 3, improve recreational, educational, and study opportunities provided by marine ecosystems that are the subject to minimal human disturbance, and to manage these uses in a manner consistent with protecting biodiversity. 4, protect marine natural heritage, including protection of representative and unique marine life habitats in California waters for their intrinsic values. 5, ensure California's MPAs have clearly defined objectives, effective management measures, and adequate enforcement, and are based on sound scientific guidelines. 6, ensure the state MPAs are designed and managed to the extent possible as a network. And now Mary Schwalbe will sing Under the Sea from The Little Mermaid, composed by Alan Menken and Howard Ashman.
The seaweed is always greener in somebody else's lake. You dream about going up there, but that is a big mistake. Just look at the world around you, right here on the ocean floor. Such wonderful things surround you. What more is you're looking for? Under the sea, under the sea. Darling, it's better down where it's wetter. Take it from me. Up on the shore we work all day. Out in the sun they slave away, while we devote to full time to floating under the sea. Down here all the fish is happy, as off through the waves they roll. The fish on the land ain't happy, they sad 'cause they in the bowl. But fish in the bowl is lucky, they in for a worse of fate. One day when the boss get hungry, guess who gon' be on the plate? Oh no, under the sea, under the sea. Nobody beat us, fry us and eat us in fricassee. We what the land folks love to cook, under the sea we off the hook. We got no troubles, life is the bubbles under the sea, under the sea. Since life is sweet here, we got it beat here naturally. Even the sturgeon and the ray, they get the urge to start to play. We got the spirit, you got to hear it under the sea. The lute play the flute, the cart play the harp, the bass play the bass, and they sound and sharp. The bass play the brass, the chop play the top. The fluke is the Duke of Soul, oh yeah. The ray he can play the lings on the strings. The trout rocking out the blackfish, she sings the smelt and the sprat. They know where it's at, and oh that blowfish blow. Under the sea, under the sea. When the sardine begins the beguine, it's music to me. What do they got? A lot of sand. We got a hot crustacean band. Each little clam knows how to jam here under the sea. Each little slug here cutting a rug here under the sea. Each little snail they know how to whale here, that's why it's hotter under the water. Each we're luckier down in the muck here under the sea.
Thank you very much, Mary. Thank you.
Welcome.
Today's sermon by Jim Webb is called MLPA, Marine Life Protected Areas. Jim Webb has lived on or near California coast all his life. He loves to fish in the ocean, and he believes that the possibility of satisfying recreational sport can coexist with, and in fact requires, preservation and conservation of marine resources. To this end, he was a stakeholder during the Nearshore Fishery Management Plan. This effort called upon the use of MPAs, Marine Protected Areas, to achieve the goals of a sustainable nearshore resource, which he wholeheartedly supports. He was a stakeholder, then alternate for the Central Coast MPA initiative implementation, always in recreational fishing. With its adoption in September 2007, they began collecting data on relative MPA performance compared to carefully selected reference sites of comparable habitats. The Central Coast Collaborative Fisheries Research Project has a 12-year database of catch data. Jim continues to volunteer as a citizen scientist and will be fishing with them this year, as in the past. He participates in our local MPA collaborative, disseminating the good news about what local reserves mean for us. He has participated in local television production marketed for visitor information, authored and delivered middle school presentations on local reserves, and has done outreach to local churches regarding stewardship opportunities in the reserve network. Jim continues to fish and will attempt to give back to the resource, some of which he has taken. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you very much. And if you'll bear with me, I'll get my slide presentation going here. Okay, I trust everyone can see that now. All right. Thank you again for the invitation to be here. I'm fascinated to see your ceremony and happy to participate. I thought I'd take this opportunity to talk about marine protected areas, especially those that are right in front of Cambria and San Simeon. This won't be a thorough discussion of all 124 MPAs that were created from the 1999 MLPA Act, but it will be an eclectic tour of some of our local MPAs and what's going on there. So bear with me as we look at the next slide. This basically covers the area from Piedras Blancas Lighthouse down to Point Estero. And we have a number of different types of preservation being performed by everything from Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary to the MPAs up at Piedras Blancas to the park in front of Cambria. And we'll go through just a minute now what some of these different flavors of MPAs are. Each one has a little different design and is meant to protect a little different group of species going forward. If you look at Piedras Blancas, it's divided into a marine reserve near shore and an SMCA or state managed marine conservation area further out to the 3-mile limit. The only reason the whole thing isn't a reserve is because trawling's allowed in this section for salmon and for albacore. Otherwise, it's basically a no-take area. In front of Cambria, the primary goal was to establish an area where recreational fishing could take place without having to compete against commercial efforts. So it was turned into a state park, which allows recreational fishing, but does not allow any form of commercial take. South of the Cambria State Marine Park is White Rock Conservation Area. It again is basically a no-take area, which it is called a conservation area because there are a couple of existing kelp leases there. So some kelp has been harvested there in the not too distant past. Right in front of Cambria, we got a park, and we have tried to catalog all the types of terrain that it encompasses. You can see that list on the right. But as far as the marine resources go, it is a rich forest filled with rockfish. I think there's like 83 species of rockfish out there. And part of the goal is to see those rockfish succeed, reproduce, and multiply. This chart is, I think, an interesting chart. It shows a vermilion rockfish, or what we call a red, which is a desirable species, pardon me, to catch as a fisherman out here because they're big and they're meaty and they taste great. And this chart was taken from Milton Love's book, and he's a marine biologist who studies rockfish. I think he loves rockfish, actually. And the importance of it to me is to see that rockfish, as they grow older, produce more young. And this number, 14.6 inches, is significant because at about that size, which is about 3 to 5 years of growth, the vermilion rockfish becomes capable of reproduction. And they don't produce a lot, but they produce, you know, quite a few. Well, if you let them grow to, let's say, 5 to 10 years, when they're about a 20-inch fish, reproduction capacity has gone up tremendously. And if you can leave them alone for longer than that, and they become a big rockfish, they really start pumping out larvae into the stream, into the current that runs along our coast. And that's what you want them to do, and that's what you want a reserve to do, is to help preserve the capacity for these fish to grow old without being caught and reproduce. To study that is a real challenge, and the CCFRP Local Fishery Research Project is a participation between volunteer anglers such as myself and scientists at Cal Poly, where we catch, tag, and release rockfish in local MPAs and also in selected reference sites, which are typically adjacent to the MPA. Here you can see a gopher rockfish with a tag in it. The tag will identify where the fish was caught, what kind it was, who caught it, and if you call the number that's on it, you'll get a $20 reward for turning in that information. And a lot of people have done it. We've been doing this for 13 years. We have caught over 110,000 fish, and we have tagged and released over 35,000 fish. When we look at returns from fish that have been recaught by some by just recreational anglers, some on party boats, some by people out doing the tagging, actually. We've learned, if we look at the number of recaptures, that's the number of tagged fish that we learned about, that they called in and got their money. The vast majority of them don't travel very far at all. The importance of this is that spatial preservation techniques like reserves have a much better chance of working when the fish don't move around a whole lot. And so, in fact, that is what we have discovered, that the vast majority don't move more than a quarter of a mile. There's a few that get into the current and take off and are discovered elsewhere, but the majority of them so far don't move around much at all. So going back to vermilion rockfish again, and looking at some of the catch data, and this is just for a 5-year period back when the project began in 2007. And these are locations of reserves along our coast. Piedras Blancas is one that's near and dear to most folks in Cambria. And the reason I show this is just to point out that every vermilion rockfish we caught in Piedras Blancas, and we caught a bunch of them, I mean, we caught hundreds and hundreds of them, every one was above this green line. And that green line is that 14.6 inch point at which the vermilion become reproductively capable. And what this information shows is that the population of vermilions at Piedras Blancas at the time of sampling, every one of them was of reproductive age and capacity. And that's good news. That means we have put our arms around a population of fish that are mature enough to reproduce. They don't move around a lot, and we have closed the area off to fishing, giving them a chance to reproduce at will. it's a difficult task to count animals, whether they're elephant seals or fish or birds. You gotta, and if you can't count them, you can't measure whether they're increasing, decreasing, heading towards extinction. You just won't have knowledge about the species unless you can figure out some way to count individuals and to measure what's happening with them. Now, some of you may remember Mike. Mike was a big elephant seal that got a satellite communication link on his head so that we could follow him around and see what he was doing. And we've learned a lot from many elephant seals that have been tagged and followed around, learned a lot about their habits, and it's part of the effort that we're going to have to do with all of the species that call our area home. This slide is of familiar beach species, the snowy plover. And if you look, you can get an idea of how difficult it is even to count how many animals, even if you're standing right in front of them, it's difficult because they're so well camouflaged that it's a real challenge. I thought I'd put an arrow by every plover in this picture and see if you can count all the plovers there. So the next slide shows my count on it. And as I looked at the slide more closely, I realized I had made a mistake, that there's actually one right here too. So there should be a red arrow up there as well. But this is the kind of effort that's going to be taking place not only with elephant seals and plovers, because you can see here, this little plover, those aren't socks that it's wearing. Those are tags that have been put there. And it actually will tell a story about where that bird has been and how old it is. And that kind of effort's being done both with the fish and the mammals and the birds. And it's an important effort that is deepening our understanding of marine protected areas off of Cambria and San Simeon, and really all up and down the coast of California. This somewhat frustrating slide shows, to me, it's kind of a symbol of what happens sometimes with scientific efforts. You seem to be going around in circles, not making a lot of progress. But even if you look at this poor little critter, he's gone around and around a number of times, but he's still making some headway. And I think that's true with us, with the marine protected areas off our coast. We're making good headway on understanding what populations exist out there and getting a handle on whether they're increasing or decreasing. So that pretty well sums up my report for an eclectic look at our local MPAs and some of the creatures that live there.
Thank you very much, Jim. They're very interesting and helpful for us. Normally at this time, we receive offerings from our congregants. However, due to the virtual format of this service, we invite you to make your offering in one of these methods shown on the slideshow. Enlarge the slideshow tile to see how to do this. These methods will also be posted in a newsletter and on the UUCC website itself. Please keep in mind that our congregation is entirely self-governed by the democratic process. One of the privileges of our free church tradition is to provide all the financial support for our many ministries from among ourselves. Generosity, therefore, is one of the spiritual values we recognize as central to our personal and institutional well-being. You are invited to participate in the blessing of giving by sending us an offering. Thank you. Our thanks for all gifts given and received for the work of this community. Now, let us sing the doxology.
From all that dwell below the skies, let faith and hope with love arise. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land by every tongue.
Please join us now in singing the closing hymn, In Our Hands, by Peter Mayer.
The world was very big long ago. The forests and the fields and the oceans seemed to roll on forever. If you can see beyond the horizon, you'll never know what you'll find. And then just before our very eyes, the world began shrinking in size. And we were closer together until it seemed if we all reached out that we could reach the whole way around. And now it's so small that we have the whole world in our hands to carry with love and carry with care and give to tomorrow to all who live there. The world was very big long ago, stretching on so endlessly so that we never expected that it was just a speck floating by in an infinite sky. So now we know it isn't so vast, this lovely little world in our grasp, and everything is connected. So every little good we can send always comes back round again. So now it's so small that we have the whole world in our hands to carry with love and carry with care and give to tomorrow to all who live there. And now it's so small that we have the whole world in our hands to carry with love and carry with care and give to tomorrow to all who live there. We got the whole world in our hands. 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 We got the whole world in our hands.
Thank you, Mary. Let us now recite the valediction. The flame of this chalice will no longer burn today, but the light of the flame within our hearts continues to shine brightly, illuminating the love felt in our community. After the benediction, you are welcome to stay for question and comment session with Jim. Please now remove your arrow to the top right of your screen to find the gallery view button. Click it on to see everyone. And Jim will now deliver the benediction.
Well, thank you again for welcoming me to your group. I appreciate this opportunity. And I'd like to close with a point that was made to me by my math teacher when I was a young man. His name was Mr. Ockert. And it used to drive him crazy that people would talk about discrimination in the world and how terrible it was. And he made the point to me that, no, it's not discrimination that's the problem. It's the lack of discrimination. That the fact that we have a tendency to ignore the uniqueness of each individual and generalize in unproductive and often cruel ways, science relies on a clear delineation between individuals, species, a clear discrimination between one event and another. And it's really an essential tool. And so I would just like to close by saying, I think science is an area where discrimination is necessary, but in society in general, it's probably less than useful. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks very much.